There are so many movies available to stream. So many movies now just get released to streaming services, and it's so easy to just forget what's either in theaters for about 2 weeks and then just is available for VOD, and then all of a sudden it's on streaming. It's easy to forget when movies are directly released to streaming. I found myself this week watching a lot of movies on streaming services, so I just wanted to do basically a video where I'm talking about all the movies I've seen these past few weeks. I've seen about 4 to 5 that I wanted to talk about today. They are all available. I'll make sure I let you guys know which streaming services they are available on, and I'm going to be giving my reviews of each one. So this is going to be a pretty laid back podcast. I'm not going to go into greater detail. Some of these I just didn't think they warranted a full written out review. So that's why I'm doing it this way. But anyway, my name is Ben Friedman. I am a film critic. I contribute to such magazines such as Highbrow Magazine, as well as this YouTube channel, the Beneverse Movie Channel. And thank you all for checking out this video. And today we're talking streaming movies to watch or not watch. So let's get into this. Streaming movies. This is the norm of Hollywood right now. We are going to get a lot of streaming services, and we're going to keep getting them, and we're going to keep getting them until it's over, until either the streaming model dies, which I don't think it's going anywhere, or until the end of time. That seems more likely. But with that, that means there's a lot more movies coming on to streaming services, and there's a lot more streaming services. There's I think I'm subscribed to 8. I'm going to count them off, and this is really bad podcasting, so I do apologize. But off the top of my head, here are streaming services that I subscribe to: Disney Plus, Netflix, Prime Video, Apple TV, Paramount Plus, Peacock, HBO Max, Shudder. Those are 8 off the top of my head. There might be 1 or 2 that I'm forgetting, but those are the 8 that right away I know for a fact I am currently subscribed to. That's a lot of options, and each week there's usually a few streaming movies available. Now, last year at this time, I think the record was at an all-time high. There was definitely less movies coming out on streaming week to week. In 2022, it felt like you get 2 to 3 big releases every week on streaming services. This week, or this year, I should say, this year, you're not getting anywhere close to that. I feel like there's been a few streaming hits, but a lot of the movies that I'm even talking about today were in theaters first and then went on streaming. The theatrical experience is coming back. I think studios started to realize it's kind of impossible to spend $100 million on a movie and then just put it straight to a streaming service. It just doesn't justify the cost. If you put it in movies and it makes even if it's not a great hit, if it makes $50 million, it just helps you recoup some loss. It just seems smart to want to have your movie succeed in theaters and give it that choice and chance to succeed in theaters. And I think that's also helping the filmmakers feel confidence in streaming services, because that's been a big point of contention for directors. They don't want their movies to be made on these beautiful budgets and all that sudden, and now everyone's just watching it on their phone at home on a streaming service. That's not what was their intentions. But anyway, so what I'm going to talk about today is I have 4 movies in particular that I've seen this past week that I just wanted to give quick reviews for. These are all available on streaming services right now. These are all movies that came out in 2023. These are all movies that have some form of notoriety, and the very least have stars attached. So let's start with the one that came out the longest ago, which I can't believe I'm about to review this movie. But Jennifer Lopez is in a new romantic comedy called Shotgun Wedding. And it basically follows on the ultimate destination vacation. The happy couple to be, they get invaded by pirates, and now they have to save their wedding guests from pirates. This film stars Jennifer Lopez, Josh Duhamel, and features supporting performances from Darcy Carden and Jennifer Coolidge. And let's get into this review. This one's going to be a pretty easy review. And I should also note, I'm genuinely kinder to rom-coms for whatever reason. I'm I'm disopposed, Jesus, brain fart there for a second. I am forgiving of rom-coms because I'm just like, I accept them for what they are. And as long as they can kind of entertain me for about 90 minutes to 100 minutes, I largely can give them a pass. That's been my previous history, and it continues today. Shotgun Wedding is no different. Shotgun Wedding has a few things that I really like. One, I don't want to go out and say Jennifer Lopez is a great actress. I think she can be very capable and very talented. Films like, I believe it's Selena, and then I believe that's the singer that she plays. But even more recently, films like Hustle. Not Hustle, sorry. Films like Hustlers. Is that 2019's Hustlers? Those show that Jennifer Lopez definitely has talent as an actress. But also what Jennifer Lopez does very well is she's a movie star. She does have that quality of her that makes her watchable on screen. And not a lot of actors have that. She is a presence on screen, and you do feel her presence. And she brings that to the table. She's not doing anything shocking. This isn't a revelation performance or anything like this. But she's bringing that Jennifer Lopez energy to a film that honestly isn't really deserving of that Jennifer Lopez energy. Same with Josh Duhamel, a guy I've never been a particularly big fan of. He brings that certain level of chemistry with Jennifer Lopez. Their chemistry is better than it has any reason to be. And the hijinks of the film just worked enough for me. It's funny enough. There are some really absurd action sequences, and it gets very violent in this film, but the violence is so stuttering today. The violence is in such juxtaposition with the comedy of the film, but it actually works to the film's benefit. I actually think they do balance the tone of crazy violence, and then the characters are self-referential enough that you're just kind of on board. It's to a degree charming, and they make very direct jokes about it in this film. And it just, you know what? It just ended up working for me. I'm not going to go out and say Shotgun Wedding's going to be on my year-end best list, but while watching it, I had enough fun with it. I liked the setting of the film. I thought the villains were very mixed performances, but some of them hit in better ways than others. I don't want to give complete spoilers. That's why I got a little tepid right there, because I realized that suggesting that one person's performance is bad might really tip the scales in one way of maybe revealing this film's biggest twist. I think it's a very obvious twist, but I'm still not going to spoil it here on this channel. But when watching this film, I was just like, you know what? I'm on board with this. It kind of took 20 minutes where I was just watching this. I'm like, this is dreadful. Once the action kicks in, there's enough funny action. Also, the side characters, you know that thing in all rom-coms where they have the side characters and they're getting into their own hijinks as something else is going on? This film has that. It just so happens that that is led largely by Jennifer Coolidge, who is extremely funny in this film. In fact, so funny in this film, like, this Shotgun Wedding does not deserve to have Jennifer Coolidge being this funny in this film. And that just allows the film to move at a pace. And at 90 minutes, you're just kind of in and out and you're done. And I like that. I like that. I was folding laundry while watching this film, and that's the ultimate positive I can give with this film. If you are doing household chores and you just want to have a movie on, Shotgun Wedding is your movie. It is perfectly enjoyable in that way. If you're having a romantic night out and you just want to watch a movie for 90 minutes before going to bed, again, another perfectly great reason to watch Shotgun Wedding. As an actual quality film, it's not there. It's very cliched. You've seen this film hundreds of times before, but if you're already dispositioned to like this type of film, then I think you'll have enough fun with this film. And for that reason, I'm giving Shotgun Wedding 2.5 out of 5 stars. With that said, so that's Shotgun Wedding. That's available to stream on Prime Video. So again, not a huge recommendation. It's a very tepid recommendation, but overall, on the scale of good to bad, it leans slightly more good than bad for me. Not a huge recommendation, but enough of a recommendation from me. Moving on, which movie that I want to do? I have three more that I could do. Let's do the least fun of these three movies. One that's just going to be a quick one, because I don't really have thoughts on this film. Tom Brady was in a movie this year. I don't know if you know him, famed football player who once played for the New England Patriots. This is a movie called 80 for Brady, which is available to stream on Paramount Plus. And 80 for Brady follows four lifelong friends who they're huge Patriots fans. And after some situations come up in their life, they decide that they want to take the journey together to go see Tom Brady play in the Super Bowl. So they go out to go see Super Bowl. I believe it's 51. I believe is this the Falcons game? This is the one where Tom Brady does the heroics from the comeback where they're down like 28-3 or whatever. And that crazy comeback that they end up doing. I'm researching it right now. Atlanta Falcons. Yeah, the 28-3 Atlanta Falcons series. And so this film stars Lily Tomlin, Jane Fonda, Rita Moreno, and Sally Field as the four friends. And watching this movie on streaming, I had friends who saw it in theaters a few months ago, and they reported back to me, this is exactly the movie that it's sold as. And if you find that trailer funny, you'll find this movie funny. Issue was, I never found that trailer particularly funny. So I wasn't going into this movie with any form of high hopes. What I will say is this film does a few things really right. And one of the big things is, as I always state on this channel, it's something I'm hugely fond of. It's 98 minutes. It does not overstay its welcome. That's a huge thing. This film is always moving. You have four talented actresses in Lily Tomlin, Jane Fonda, Rita Moreno, and Sally Field that this movie works enough on just them being on screen together, interacting. Is this 80 for Brady movie particularly good? No. I would not give this film the quality of good. Is this film a movie that you could watch with your grandma? Oh my God, yes, it is. This is very much one of those types of films. I found this film charming, but lackluster. The humor did not work for me. I just wasn't laughing. There is a really funny gag involving Sally Field and sexual innuendos that is actually very funny. Outside of that, I wasn't really laughing on the film, but what this film does do successfully is they have four very talented actresses who all have experience with dramatic work. So there is things testing their friendship and specifically things in life that come up that really just change their dynamic, specifically more health related aspects for a few of these characters. And that grounds the film in a genuine emotion. And that genuine emotion is enough to buy into this film. Again, 80 for Brady isn't particularly, anything new. It's you know exactly all the beats it's going to hit. But while watching it, I was able to give it at least the benefit of I'm enjoying it for what it was. Now, I will say there's an aspect, obviously being 80 for Brady, where Tom Brady is advertised in this movie, and he is in this movie. The Tom Brady scene of this movie is very bad. There's a speech given by one of the characters that is kind of just too much. It could have been done with a lot less is a lot more. And this is where the film really it not loses me because it's only got like 5 minutes left. You know the speech is coming. It's done well enough, I guess. Like it's over within like 2 minutes. But I was just like, okay, I don't need this. And it was kind of just like a bow that you knew it had to be there because this film had to end. But I was just like, I get it, but I didn't care about this emotional scene and this idea, if you keep fighting, I keep fighting. That's where the film's emotion loses me. With that said, overall, I can say that there is fun to be had with 80 for Brady. Again, not necessarily a wholehearted recommendation, but if you were interested by this film, I think there is enough to get you invested in this film and have fun with this film. I should just mention, because I didn't mention him, uh, Gronkowski is in this film to a actually really funny cameo. He is definitely much better than Tom Brady in this movie. Gronkowski has 2 or 3 jokes that legitimately hit, and there's this gag involving a novel about Gronkowski. I don't want to give out that, but that's a really funny gag. But overall, this movie is perfectly fine. You've seen it before, but again, if you're inclined to this type of movie, basically, if you saw that movie Las Vegas from a few years ago with, I think it's De Niro, Morgan Freeman, Alan Arkin, if you like that movie, you'll have fun with this movie. Not a huge recommendation, but it's enough for me to get it to the 2 out of 5 stars. That's my review of it. It's a 2-star film, but it's an enjoyable enough 2-star film. I don't regret watching this movie. It's not bad. I just wouldn't call it anything above fine. This one I'm going to have some fun with. This is on Prime Video. It is a movie starring Dennis Quaid and Heather Graham. I guess it's based on a real story. I didn't research this before. It's called On a Wing and a Prayer. And let me just describe it real quick for you. After the pilot dies unexpectedly mid-flight, Doug White, played by Dennis Quaid, has to safely land the plane and save his entire family from insurmountable danger. Again, this film stars Dennis Quaid and Heather Graham. This is a faith-based movie, and it very much shows. It's bad. I mean, this movie's really bad. I also cannot deny I had a ton of fun with this movie. This is the fun type of bad. 102 minutes. Always want to point out the runtime if you know anything about me. 102 minutes. Like I said, I get that this is based on a true story. The religious shoehorning of this movie is very obvious. I mean, it's literally titled On a Wing and a Prayer. And let me tell you one thing. Heather Graham, love her so much. She's my favorite of the Austin Power girls. Always had a huge crush on Heather Graham. She looks absolutely amazing in Boogie Nights. And that's the issue with On a Wing and a Prayer. Seeing Heather Graham as a suburban Christian mother just didn't land. And she has a very Southern accent in this movie. And it's very funny for completely the wrong reasons. Especially there's scenes where she just keeps yelling, "Oh God, oh God, oh God, oh God." And obviously, my sick mind, all I could think about was some of her scenes in Boogie Nights. And I laughed. I laughed because of that. But that is so non-intentional by the movie. This movie is played completely straight. Just as probably the filmmaker wanted it to. Don't want to cast aspersions there. But there is a very religious leaning, and it does feel like a little bit of a political leaning with this film. Dennis Quaid as Doug White. Here's the thing. Dennis Quaid, just accept you are not a movie star. Just accept you're a character actor. You are a good actor, but you're not a leading man. And this film asked him to be the leading man, and he's just not interesting to watch on screen. Now, that's not to say that there aren't some really funny scenes involving how bad Dennis Quaid is in this movie, but it's again the failure of the movie. Now, because listen, I didn't know anything about this going into the movie. I didn't know that it was a religious pseudo-text. I didn't know anything about the story. I didn't know anything going into this movie. So the premise itself, I was like, okay, I'll give it a chance. Let's see what it can do. And the whole time, one, it spends way too long establishing everything else that happens before the crash. It's the same kind of situation where you're just like, you're waiting for something to happen, and the whole point of this movie is supposed to be Dennis Quaid's character landing this plane. But it takes like 40 minutes to get to that scene, and by that point, you're just like, why is this film like dragging on so much? And why are we at like this pie festival? And why do we care about this dynamic with this brother that, spoiler alert, dies right at the beginning of the film? I mean, it's literally the catalyst to get them in Florida and then have them fly back to, I believe they live in Louisiana. But I am just watching and I'm like, why do we need all this setup for a movie that just like the whole point of it is supposed to be this survival tale? It also it's really poorly edited. And here's how I define poorly edited. If you notice a film is poorly edited, it's poorly edited. I think there are so many technical aspects of films that experts can look at, but the average moviegoer just doesn't really pick up. And I noticed the poor editing in this film. It's actually very apparent. Because they do this thing where there's like 10 different people who you're reporting to. So you have Dennis Quaid up in the plane with his family. Then you have a group trying to get him home. And then you have another group who's also working, trying to get Dennis Quaid down. Then you have this children's subplot with these two children. One of them is this girl who's just like a huge Amelia Earhart fan. And she's just listening in, and like she knows basically everything about flying for some reason, despite being like 8 years old. And like, so she's involved in this, but she's not actually communicating with everybody. And you're just like, she's just there to some degree, almost to be the audience eyes, but the film doesn't need that. And so you just have like 15 minutes of her and her friend. And there's nothing that ties that part of the film together. You're just wondering why that's there. Is it supposed to be something inspirational? I don't fully know. But yeah, besides that, I mean, just everything about this film is bad. And I don't want to dunk on the kids who play Dennis Quaid and Heather Graham's children. I will say the accents in this film are all over the place bad. Just absolutely really bad. And there's just so much like... Do you ever have this issue? Tell me if you ever have this issue, because I have this issue a lot with movies, is sometimes they feel like they need to add more to keep the audience entertained. Like, oh, okay, this situation's crazy, but what if we do this as well? Like, what if this is happening? And that's what they do on A Wing and a Prayer. The situation of Dennis Quaid's character, Doug White, being in an airplane and having the pilot die on the airplane, and now he has to land it, that's enough drama for this film to be successful. They do this scene where the daughter of Doug accidentally swallows a peanut and she's like deathly allergic. So now there's this whole like little action scene where the other sister is trying to get her pen. And it's like, you don't need that in this film. Like, the drama of this film is enough. A man is trying to land a plane with his family on board. That's enough drama. But then they're like, oh, but now he's going to land it in a hurricane. There's a hurricane going on. And it's just like, maybe this is all true. Maybe this is all that happened. But when you're watching it, it's like, okay, all that I really need from this film is this. Like, Dennis Quaid trying to land a plane. You don't need everything else. But this film insists on adding everything else. So I was just wholeheartedly unimpressed with it. But again, it's really funny. It's so funny. It's one of these so bad, it's good. Like, I was thoroughly entertained with just some of the poor acting, the outrageous Southern accents, just some of the just wildness of this film. Like, these characters who just appear to just yell one thing of dialogue or say something and just never have any more impact. All of this, just some of those, the way this film looks in certain scenes, like some of the special effects, it's all just done really bad. It's not even that it's a uninspired film. It's just an incompetent film made by actors who shouldn't be playing these roles. And that's where On a Wing and a Prayer fails. It's the weird thing, because out of all three of these films that I've mentioned so far, this was probably the one that I had the most fun with, and yet it's also easily by far the worst film. So I'm ultimately going to give On a Wing and a Prayer a 1 out of 5 stars. Why am I even like hesitating on it? It's a 1 out of 5 star movie. It's not a really good movie, but it's if you're hanging out with your friends and you want a bad movie, check out On a Wing and a Prayer. It's not particularly good. You'll have fun with this one for sure. You may notice this is a little choppily edited right here. That's because I did end this video and I actually went back live to do this real quick because I realized there was a movie I completely skipped. I kept saying 4 movies. There were 5 that I wanted to talk about. The 5th one is actually on Apple TV. It's been the discussion and really the ridicule of film Twitter for a second. And I checked it out last week. And I definitely have some thoughts on it. This film is, let me turn back this slide for a second. You've probably heard of it. It is called Ghosted, which is directed by Dexter Fletcher and stars, Chris Evans and Ana de Armas. Premise of this movie is Chris Evans plays this kind of hapless fellow who ends up matching with Ana de Armas's character. They go on this date. He thinks it's really special and he wants to get to know her, but he gets ghosted. He figures out where she is and he thinks as a grand romantic gesture, he's going to go to London and meet her and surprise her and just kind of sweep her off her feet. And while there, he discovers that Ana de Armas is a spy and she's working for the CIA, and it's a really dangerous mission to track down this bioweapon called Aztec. So now it's the classic rom-com, think kind of Mr. and Mrs. Smith, featuring Ana de Armas and Chris Evans. And like I said, this movie has been the subject of much ridicule online, and I understand why. Here's what Ghosted has going for it in its favor. It does have Chris Evans and it does have Ana de Armas, and you think their chemistry would be really good considering they were in Knives Out together, and they have incredible chemistry in Knives Out. They have no chemistry in Ghosted. It's actually kind of weird how little chemistry they have in Ghosted. You know what it reminded me of? I don't know if anyone saw the Men in Black International film with Chris Hemsworth and Tessa Thompson, who have great chemistry in the Thor films, but in Men in Black International, they don't have any chemistry, and it's such a showcase of what a director can achieve with actors and how other directors can't replicate that success, and that's what it is in Ghosted. I did not believe either their chemistry. Ana de Armas is bad in this movie. Just straight up a performer that I really like. This is one of her worst performances, if not her worst performance that I've just ever seen her give. She is so one note in this movie. Everything about this movie is just weird. Dexter Fletcher is a really talented director. He just recently, a few years ago, directed Rocket Man, the Elton John biopic with Taron Egerton, and I thought he was really good as the director of that. And in this film, like, the action's really bland. It's overly CGI. It's not interesting to look at. The story is so cliched, and I'm just like, this had to have just been a paycheck movie for him, because that's what it feels like for everybody. There's just nothing to really connect to in this movie. And it's like really weird because, you at the very least, I thought Chris Evans and Ana de Armas would do enough for me to kind of just give it maybe like a light pass, or say it's bad, but it's enjoyable enough. I can't really get there on this. This film's bad. It's too long at 2 hours. None of the jokes are particularly funny. They decide to just make Chris Evans' character Cole just completely not only inept, but just dumb. Like, he stalks a girl and it's supposed to be romantic, and like they kind of poke fun of it, but he's just such a loser in this film that you don't care for him or when he's in danger, because he's just so self-absorbed. It feels like he's the classic nice guy, but you're just like, okay, just like whatever. Like, I don't like this guy. Like I said, nothing of this film like worked for me, and it's like not disappointing, but I was just like, I thought we were in a place where we didn't make movies this bad, where it was just like, you have a talented director, you have 2 talented cast members. This film should be watchable, and it's really not watchable. Like I said, the action looks bad. The screenplay is bad. One of the things that drove me crazy, why are Chris Evans and Ana de Armas never on set? Watch the film. Notice that, like, for a lot of the film, it does this thing where it's just, here, let me grab an example. We're going to grab Peja Stojakovic right here. Let's say I'm talking right now, and I'm looking at the camera. This is what we see of Ana de Armas. Let me put it right here. It's just the back of her head, which means it's just obviously a stand-in. Ana de Armas is not on set. And then all of a sudden it will now cut back and it's now just him talking, but pretend I'm no longer here. It's just Peja, and now it's like the back of my head, like this. Great example I'm doing right here. And that's like a lot of the scenes in this film where I'm just like, here, I'm going to put Peja back. Why are they not on set together? This film probably cost somewhere of, my guess would be over $50 million. And they're not on set together? Like, have your actors on set for all of the film. Like, it's so obvious that they're not like on screen together, and it just like takes away even more from the chemistry. And it's just like all this, and I'm just like, oh my God, this movie feels like it was written by GPT. And it feels like it was shot in 2 weeks. There's no life to this movie. There's no energy. There's one good gag in this movie involving, what's it called? It's involving Hitman, and it's a plethora of cameos. And these cameos are funny to lesser degrees as it goes on, but for the first few, it's actually fairly funny. And then the joke does kind of just crash and burn after a while. And by the last cameo, it's just, it feels very exhausting. But like that scene, at least for like when it started, it got a good chuckle out of me. But besides that, I really can't say much else positive about this film. Adrian Brody plays the villain, and he's really bad as the villain, like really bad as the villain looking for these weapons. Yeah, there's nothing I can really say else about what's this film? I can't even remember what it's called. Ghosted. There's nothing else I can really say except the fact that it is the Apple TV's most watched film. Debut is absolutely horrifying. The fact that this is a streaming service that premiered Coda, and this is their most watched film, is just, I feel terrible about the future of cinema, but whatever, I guess. I have to accept that fact. I mean, this just feels so generic. I can't care about it anymore, and I'm done talking about it. So Ghosted, it is a 1 out of 5 stars for me. So that takes me to my final review that I want to talk about, which is a film that had the 5th installment of this franchise actually came out last year, 2022. I don't think I ever actually did a formal review for this movie, which maybe that's definitely on me. But the sequel, and if you're good at knowing the numbers of sequels, you probably already guessed which review I'm about to do. This is Scream 6. This is my review for Scream 6. And this one's actually a little bit more important to me that I give some backstory to this. So let me just say, I'm not the biggest Scream fan. Out of all the kind of iconic horror genres, this property is the one that I kind of mess with the least. I much prefer the Friday the 13th. I much prefer the Halloweens, the Exorcist, the Evil Deads, all of that. Scream's just not really my type of movie. And I really did not like Scream 5 from 2022. But Scream 6, the trailer's good. It's a really good trailer. It's this, Ghostface in New York. I like Jenna Ortega a lot in this role. And there's like enough in it where I'm just like, okay, maybe this film could be good. Like the action looks a little bit more brutal. So I went on, and this film is available to stream on Paramount Plus. So I went on, not optimistic about this movie, but interested in this movie enough that I actually wanted to see this movie and see what it was about. And what I will say is I much preferred Scream 6 over Scream 5. But some of the issues that I have with Scream 5 are still very apparent in Scream 6. But let me just start off with how the film starts off. Scream 6 starts off with a character played by the actress, I'm blanking on her name, Samara Weaving. Yeah, Samara Weaving, who starred in the director's previous films, Ready or Not. That's basically the job that gets them hired for Scream 5 and ultimately Scream 6. It starts off with this college professor. If you know the Scream formula, you know what's going to happen to her. Blah, blah, blah. Who's the killer? This film zags really quick into the runtime where it reveals something very quick that's actually like, oh, wait, that's interesting. And then it does something again, and you're like, oh, that's actually shocking. And by the end of this 15-minute sequence, maybe it's not 15 minutes, but it's a pretty substantial length. I was like, you know what? I'm into this. The violence is really brutal in a really like upsetting type of way. The humor is clicking for me. The meta-ness of the commentary, because I should mention Samara Weaving's character, Laura Crane, is a film professor. And with the meta-ness text of Scream, it like that whole stuff is working for me. So I'm like, okay, I'm actually getting into this movie. And then we cut back to the original gang from Scream 5 that is composed of Melissa Barria, who plays Sam Carpenter, which, if you don't remember what happens in Scream 5, she's the illegitimate daughter of Billy Loomis. And then, as well as that, you have some of the other members of the people who survived in the last film. So you have actress Jasmine Savory Brown and Jack Champion are also in this film, along with Jenna Ortega, who is the sister to the character Sam Carpenter. They're all in this. They basically start getting wind that someone is dressing up as Ghostface and killing people. And I should also mention that these characters have all moved to New York. I think they're all there for college or just something like that. And they obviously start to panic because it's Ghostface, and Ghostface kills people like them. And the film at that point becomes a very traditional Scream film. What I liked that Scream 6 had to offer was when this film uses its New York setting, it uses it to the utmost degree. There's two scenes that stand out to me in this film. One of them is in a bodega. Ghostface has a gun, and it's just an inventive way to basically, pun unintended, or I guess intended, but shoot Ghostface. I mean, he's literally he has a gun, and he's going around killing people in this bodega. It's a very gnarly scene. It's a very scary scene, and Ghostface just never has felt more threatening. And it's just, that scene really worked for me in the violence of it, the way that violence is shot, the horror of that scene, the tension of it. I thought the directors did a really good job with this bodega scene. If that scene was really good, the exceptional scene in this film, and again, I'm trying not to spoil anything, there is a scene on a subway that is about 5 minutes, and it's one of the tensest scenes you'll see in a movie this year. I mean, it's just involving flickering lights, people dressed up as Ghostface, because this whole movie takes place, it seems like, around Halloween, so people are dressed up. It's a very tense scene, and the direction of it's perfect. The lighting of it, the fact that you have these flickering lights, the noise of the subway, the harsh stops, the movements, everything feels so choreographed, where all the movements, it kind of takes your breath away, and you're able to be in that scene with these characters. And it's done to just impressive degree. This is like maybe one of the top 5 scenes in a Scream movie, if not even higher than that. It's a really well done scene. Outside of that, though, there wasn't anything that I particularly loved about Scream outside of those few scenes, the opening and those 2 scenes in New York that I mentioned. The film doesn't really take advantage of its New York setting. I wanted it to do that more. And it also comes back to the issue that I had with the Scream 5. I think Melissa Barrera is much better as Sam Carpenter in this film. I think she's grown into this role much better, because I thought she was really bad at Scream 5. She's still not as good. And Jenna Ortega's very good in this film. So it's even bigger juxtaposition when you have Jenna Ortega being so good in kind of acting laps around Melissa Barrera. Everyone else in this film, I can kind of give or take. The other 2 surviving characters from the previous films, Jack Champion and Jasmine Savory Brown, whose characters are respectively Ethan and Mindy, I could have done without these characters. There was nothing for me in this film. I specifically found the writing for Mindy Meeks Martin really annoying. And this is that issue where I talked about earlier. I'm not the biggest fan of the Scream meta-ness. And I think in the first Scream and some of the earlier sequels, it's done well. But there's this whole, Scream 5 and Scream 6 does it to a really obnoxious degree. But it's just the whole meta-ness of like, oh, that's a reboot. but it's a new franchise, or it's you have the legacy characters, or it's a sequel, it's a prequel, like all that, the whole genre of basically sequel filmmaking in Hollywood, it just really bothered me in this film. And I think this one feels very overwritten, and I just don't think Jasmine Savory Brown, sorry, I keep mispronouncing that name, it's Jasmine Savoy Brown. I just don't think she is able to bring it in this film. And I just found these monologues, and there's one specifically in the middle, just insufferable. And every time it really gets into that aspect of this film, it really annoyed me, because Scream 6 really focuses in on some legacy. It's a very much aware of the history of Scream, and it really presents it to you very directly in this film, with basically the history of Ghostface. And there's this whole sequence that I don't want to give fully away, but I'll just say, and I think if you've seen the film, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. We kind of get a history of Ghostface and kind of go back in past and see some of the Ghostface of before and what caused them and the looks, blah, blah, blah. And I found this scene to be really shoehorned in there, and it doesn't really make sense in the geographical location of New York City. I had a lot of questions on this. I thought the plot twist was very obvious from the beginning. Like, I just knew what it was right away. And it kind of felt like the things that they're warning about in this film, which made Scream so clever when they're calling out the tropes and genres, and then they make it in a new, fresh, and exciting way. In this film, it feels like they call it out. Like, they're like, oh yeah, isn't that like dumb when other movies do it? But then they kind of commit that same sin in this movie. And I just never found that it justified. It almost felt like if they're like, all right, well, if we call it out and make fun of it, if we're self-referential about it, we can kind of get away with it because we're admitting that we're doing that. And isn't that like kind of the point? And I found it, just to be honest, a little annoying and a little insufferable. And was kind of my vibe for this whole film. Now, like I said, I do think this film is overall an improvement on Scream 5. I think the violence and the action and some of the direction is much more just impressive. But by the end of this, I really just I don't have any desire to see a Scream 7. If this is the best, this felt like to some degree, like this is going to be the best and some of the freshest stuff you'll get in the Scream franchise. And if they make a Scream 7, I'm just like, I don't know what you do, and I don't really care. And I'm just like, I feel very done with this franchise, and I'm good to put it to rest for a little bit. Again, if you're a Scream fan, you may love this film. I also know there are some Scream fans who are very much against this film, very much hate this film. So it might be just the case of divisive. Overall, this isn't a recommendation for me as someone who is not a fan of the Scream films already. This doesn't do anything to really raise my excitement, although I will admit there is some really great direction, set design in this film, and it is a vast improvement over Scream 5. So I am giving Scream 6 2 out of 5 stars here on the Beneverse. Again, you can stream that movie today on Paramount Plus. That's all my reviews for today. That's this video. Thank you all for watching, sticking with this video. If there's any other streaming movies that I haven't talked about, let me know. I have reviews coming out for films like Beau is Afraid, Renfield. I posted my review of 65 a few days ago. Let's see what else. I know I have The Pope's Exorcist coming. I have a lot of reviews that are coming on slot soon. So do keep an eye out for that. If you like this video, it always helps me so much if you like and comment below. My name is Ben Friedman, film critic here from the Beneverse Movie Channel. And I also want to say before I go, stand with the Writers Guild of America. Thank you so much for watching this video. Take care and bye-bye.